Maya Chen had always been the smallest person in any room she entered. At barely 5 feet tall and weighing less than most teenagers, she looked like a strong wind could knock her over. The other cadets at the Galactic Defense Academy whispered behind her back, wondering how someone so fragile had even passed the physical entrance exams. The academy stood as a massive structure on the moon Titan, its chrome and glass towers reaching toward the star-filled void. Representatives from dozens of alien species trained here, learning to fight against the growing threat of the Void Reapers. These ancient machines had been destroying civilizations for millennia, and every species contributed their best warriors to learn and share combat techniques. Maya walked through the main training hall, her regulation uniform hanging loose on her tiny frame. Around her, alien cadets practiced their native fighting styles. The Krillian warriors, standing 8 feet tall with 4 muscled arms, threw each other across the room in displays of raw power. Their exoskeletons gleamed under the artificial lights as they crashed into training mats with thunderous impacts. Near the weapons rack, the serpentine Naga coiled and struck with lightning speed, their flexible bodies moving like living whips. Their scales shimmered as they demonstrated techniques that would be impossible for any creature with bones. The sound of their bodies cutting through air was like a whisper of death. In another corner, the insectoid Zaraph clicked and buzzed as they performed their intricate martial arts. Their 6 limbs moved in perfect coordination, creating a deadly dance that looked almost like a ritual. Each movement flowed into the next with mechanical precision. Maya found an empty corner and began her morning routine. She started with basic stretches, her movements careful and deliberate. The other cadets barely noticed her, which was exactly how she preferred it. She had learned long ago that being underestimated was sometimes an advantage. Commander Thex, a battle-scarred Krillian veteran, called the morning assembly. His voice boomed across the hall, echoing off the high ceiling. Today we begin combat specialization selection. Each of you will choose a primary fighting discipline to master during your time here. The cadets gathered in formation. Maya stood in the back row, almost hidden behind a group of towering Altarian warriors. Their blue skin gleamed like metal, and their muscles rippled with every breath. One of them, Koros, had already made it clear he thought humans were too weak to belong at the academy. The Krillian Bone Crusher style focuses on overwhelming force and endurance, Commander Thex announced. Several cadets stepped forward, mostly the larger species who relied on brute strength. The Naga Venom Strike emphasizes speed and precision attacks to vital points. More cadets moved to that group, their movements already taking on the fluid quality of snake-like motion. As each discipline was announced, cadets made their choices. The Zaraph Swarm fighting, the Altarian Iron Body, the Vorthan Mind combat. Each style had its followers, species naturally drawn to techniques that matched their physical abilities. Maya remained in place as the groups formed. She watched each demonstration, her dark eyes absorbing every detail. When Commander Thex finished his explanations, only a handful of cadets remained without groups. Those of you still here may choose any remaining spots, the commander said, his multiple eyes focused on Maya. Cadet Chen, you seem hesitant. All eyes turned to her. Maya felt the familiar weight of judgment, the assumption that she would choose something safe and easy. She could almost hear their thoughts about the weak human girl who didn't belong among real warriors. I request permission to study all disciplines, sir, Maya said clearly. The training hall fell silent. Even the background hum of the station's systems seemed to pause. Commander Thex's mandibles clicked together, a sign of either amusement or irritation. All disciplines? Koros laughed, his voice like grinding stone. Human, you can barely lift a standard training weapon. You want to learn techniques designed for warriors 3 times your size? Maya turned to face him. Her expression remained calm, but something flickered in her eyes. I want to learn everything. Impossible, said Vess, one of the Naga instructors. Her hood flared slightly as she spoke. Each fighting style takes years to master, a lifetime to perfect. You're asking for something that cannot be done. Besides, added another cadet, a Zeref called Zeke, humans don't have the physical capabilities for most of our techniques. Your bodies are too limited. Maya listened to each objection without speaking. She had heard similar words her entire life. Too small, too weak, too human. Her parents had said it when she wanted to join the academy. Her teachers had said it when she applied for the advanced program. Her fellow humans had said it when she actually got accepted. Commander Thex studied her for a long moment. His species valued strength above all else, but they also respected determination. Very well, Cadet Chen. You may attempt to study all disciplines, but understand this. You will receive no special treatment because of your limitations. If you cannot keep up, you will be removed from the program. I understand, sir. Furthermore, you will be required to demonstrate proficiency in each style before being allowed to continue. Failure in any discipline means failure in all. Maya nodded. Around her, the other cadets exchanged looks that ranged from pity to amusement. They saw a small human girl setting herself up for spectacular failure. The first week nearly broke her. Maya's schedule began before dawn and ended long after the station's lights dimmed for night cycle. While other cadets focused on one discipline, she rotated through all of them. Her body ached in ways she hadn't known were possible. During Krillian training, she tried to lift weights designed for four-armed giants. Her muscles screamed in protest, and she could barely move the lightest setting. The Krillian instructor, Sergeant Brix, showed no mercy. He pushed her through exercises that left her shaking with exhaustion. "Weakness is death, Cadet Chen," he growled as she struggled with a basic strength drill. "The Void Reapers will not adjust their attacks because you are small." Maya gritted her teeth and continued. She couldn't match the Krillians' raw power, but she began to understand the principles behind their techniques. Every movement was designed to maximize force transfer, every stance optimized for stability under extreme stress. Naga training was different but equally challenging. Master Vess demanded perfect precision in every strike. Maya's human joints couldn't bend at the impossible angles the Naga used, but she learned to compensate with footwork and timing. "Your body betrays you with every movement," Vess hissed during one particularly frustrating session. "You are stiff where you should be fluid, slow where you should be instant." But Maya persisted. She studied videos of Naga combat late into the night, breaking down their movements frame by frame. She couldn't replicate their serpentine flexibility, but she began to find human ways to achieve similar results. The Zeref style frustrated her most of all. Their six-limb coordination seemed impossible for a bipedal species to even comprehend, let alone perform. Master Zack clicked his disapproval constantly as Maya fumbled through basic patterns. "Humans think in straight lines," he buzzed. "Our combat is spherical, multidimensional. Your mind cannot process the complexity." Yet Maya continued to try. She practiced the arm movements until her shoulders burned, attempted to incorporate leg techniques that left her tangled and bruised. The other cadets stopped even pretending to hide their laughter. By the end of the first week, Maya could barely walk. Her body was covered in bruises from failed techniques and hard landings. Her muscles felt like they had been torn apart and hastily sewn back together. Several instructors had privately suggested she reconsider her ambitious goal. She sat alone in her small quarters, staring at her reflection in the dark window. Beyond the glass, the rings of Saturn painted elegant arcs across space. She looked at her small hands, unmarked by the calluses that veteran fighters wore like medals. Her face showed every impact from the week's training, purple and yellow marks mapping her failures. For a moment, doubt crept in. Maybe everyone was right. Maybe she was just a weak human girl pretending to be something she could never become. Maybe she should choose one discipline and focus on what was realistic. Then she remembered why she was here. Maya had been 12 when the Void Reapers attacked Earth's outer colonies. The news feeds had shown the aftermath. Entire cities reduced to twisted metal and ash, families torn apart by creatures that felt no emotion and showed no mercy. Her older brother David had been on one of those colonies, working as an engineer for the terraforming project. They never found his body. The rescue teams found no survivors on any of the attacked worlds. The Void Reapers didn't take prisoners or leave witnesses. They simply consumed everything in their path and moved on, like a natural disaster with malicious intelligence. Maya had watched her parents grieve, had seen how the attack broke something fundamental in them. They became smaller, more fearful, constantly looking at the sky as if expecting death to rain down at any moment. Her father, once an optimistic man who believed technology could solve any problem, became obsessed with defensive systems and escape routes. Her mother stopped talking about the future altogether. That was when Maya decided she would become strong enough to fight back. Not just for herself, but for everyone who had lost someone to the Reapers, for all the families who lived in fear of the next attack, for her brother, whose dreams of building new worlds had been cut short by ancient machines that cared nothing for human hope. She had trained in every martial art available on Earth, pushing her small body to its limits. When the Galactic Defense Academy accepted her application, she knew it was her chance to learn from the best fighters in the galaxy. Each alien species had developed their techniques over thousands of years of warfare. If she could master even a fraction of their knowledge, she might become the weapon humanity needed. Maya stood up from her desk and walked to the center of her room. Her body protested every movement, but she ignored the pain. She began the opening sequence of Krillian combat forms, her movements slow and careful. The technique felt wrong for her body. Her limbs were too short, her frame too light. But as she moved, she began to understand something the instructors hadn't told her. Every fighting style was an expression of the species that created it. The Krillians fought like Krillians because they were Krillians. The Naga struck like serpents because that was their nature. But what if she didn't try to become like them? What if she found ways to adapt their techniques to her own nature as a human? Maya continued her practice, but now she made small adjustments. Instead of trying to generate power through mass like a Krillian, she focused on acceleration and timing. Instead of copying the exact angles of Naga strikes, she found human ways to achieve the same targeting principles. For the first time all week, her movements began to feel natural. The second week brought new challenges. Maya's instructors, perhaps impressed by her determination if not her results, began to push her harder. They treated her less like a curiosity and more like an actual student. Sergeant Bricks introduced her to advanced Krillian grappling techniques. "Your size is a disadvantage in power," he admitted during one training session. "But it could be an advantage in other ways. You present a smaller target. You can move in spaces where larger fighters cannot follow." Maya absorbed this lesson eagerly. She began to see how her height and weight could be assets rather than limitations. When Koros attempted to demonstrate a hold on her, she slipped out of his grip using techniques that wouldn't work on a larger opponent. His confusion and frustration became her teaching tools. Master Vess began to show grudging respect for Maya's dedication to precision. "Your strikes lack our natural speed," she admitted, "but your accuracy is improving. Perhaps humans can learn patience after all." Maya discovered that while she couldn't match Naga flexibility, her mammalian anatomy gave her different advantages. Her spine could rotate in ways that surprised her serpentine instructors. Her shoulder joints allowed for striking angles that no Naga could achieve. Even Master Zack began to modify his criticism. "You cannot think like us," he buzzed, "but perhaps you think like yourself. This is not entirely without merit." Maya started to integrate elements from different disciplines, finding ways to combine techniques that had never been mixed before. She would use Krillian stability principles to anchor herself, then flow into Naga-inspired strikes, finishing with Zeref-style multi-directional attacks adapted for her two-limbed anatomy. The other cadets began to take notice. During sparring sessions, Maya's unconventional combinations started to catch them off guard. She wasn't winning her matches, but she was lasting longer and landing hits that shouldn't have been possible for someone of her size. "She's doing something different," Koros admitted to his friends after a particularly confusing sparring session. "I've never seen those combinations before." "Because they don't exist," replied Vex, a Naga cadet. "She's making them up as she goes along." "That's impossible. Combat techniques take generations to develop." But Maya continued to evolve her approach. She spent her free time in the archives, studying historical combat records from every species in the Alliance. She looked for patterns and principles that transcended physical limitations. She began to understand that fighting wasn't just about copying techniques, it was about understanding the ideas behind them. Late at night, when the station was quiet, Maya would practice in the empty training halls. She would work through problems that had no established solutions, finding ways to make techniques work for her unique physiology. Her movements became more fluid as she stopped trying to force her body into alien patterns and started adapting those patterns to fit her own nature. One evening, Master Vess found her practicing alone. The Naga instructor watched silently as Maya flowed through a sequence that combined elements from all the disciplines she was studying. The movements looked wrong according to traditional standards, but they had their own logic and effectiveness. "What are you calling this style?" Vess asked when Maya finished. Maya paused, surprised by the question. She hadn't thought of what she was doing as a separate style. "I don't have a name for it. I'm just trying to learn everything I can." Vess coiled thoughtfully. "You know, Cadet Chen, in all my years of teaching, I have never seen a student approach combat training quite like this. Most beings learn one way and become locked into that thinking. You are learning all ways and creating something new. Is that wrong? I do not know. But it is interesting." As the weeks passed, Maya's progress accelerated. Her body adapted to the constant training, becoming stronger and more flexible than she had thought possible. More importantly, her understanding of combat principles deepened with each passing day. She learned that Krillian power came not just from muscle, but from perfect alignment and timing. She discovered that Naga speed was about minimizing unnecessary movement, not just moving fast. She found that Zeref coordination was really about thinking several moves ahead and positioning for maximum options. Maya began to excel in areas where her instructors had expected her to fail. Her small size, which had seemed like such a disadvantage, became an asset as she learned to use it strategically. She could slip under attacks that would devastate larger fighters, strike from angles that bigger opponents couldn't guard, and move through combat spaces that others couldn't access. The other cadets' attitudes toward her began to shift from mockery to curiosity, and from curiosity to respect. They started asking her about her techniques, wondering how she made combinations work that shouldn't have been possible according to their traditional training. Maya shared what she learned freely. She discovered that teaching others helped her understand the principles even better. Soon, informal study groups formed around her unique approach to combat training. But the real test was still coming. At the end of the semester, every cadet would face evaluation in their chosen discipline. Maya would have to demonstrate proficiency in all of them. The night before evaluations began, Maya sat in her quarters reviewing everything she had learned. Her body bore the marks of months of intensive training. Calluses on her hands, scars from practice weapons, muscles that had been rebuilt stronger than before. But more than her physical transformation, she felt the change in how she understood combat itself. She no longer saw fighting styles as separate, incompatible systems. Instead, She saw them as different expressions of universal principles: balance, timing, distance, leverage, momentum. These concepts appeared in every martial art, adapted to the specific needs and capabilities of each species. Maya realized she had learned something that went beyond mastering techniques. She had learned to think like a fighter, to see combat as a language she could speak fluently, regardless of which specific dialect the situation required. Tomorrow, she would have to prove that understanding in front of instructors who still doubted whether a human could truly master their ancient arts. But tonight, she felt ready. As she prepared for sleep, Maya looked out at the stars beyond her window. Somewhere out there, the Void Reapers continued their ancient work of destruction. Somewhere out there, families lived in fear of the next attack. But here on Titan, a small human girl had spent months learning to fight back. She thought of her brother David, of the dreams he'd never see fulfilled. She thought of her parents, still grieving after all these years. She thought of all the beings throughout the galaxy who had lost loved ones to the Reaper's mindless hunger. Tomorrow's evaluations would determine whether she could continue her training, but regardless of the outcome, Maya knew she had already accomplished something important. She had proven to herself that being small and human didn't mean being helpless. She had found ways to turn limitations into advantages, to create strength where others saw only weakness. The evaluations would be challenging, but Maya had learned something crucial over the past months. She didn't need to be the strongest or fastest or most flexible fighter. She just needed to be the most adaptable. And in a galaxy facing an enemy that had destroyed countless civilizations using the same tactics for millennia, adaptability might be exactly what the Alliance needed most. The evaluation chamber buzzed with nervous energy as cadets prepared for their final tests. The massive hall had been divided into separate testing areas, each designed to showcase a specific fighting discipline. Holographic barriers separated the sections, but the sounds of combat echoed throughout the space. Maya stood at the center of it all, the only cadet who would be tested in every discipline. Her instructors had arranged the tests in order of increasing difficulty, starting with basic proficiency and ending with advanced applications. She had 6 hours to prove she deserved to continue her training. Commander Thex announced the beginning of evaluations. His voice carried the weight of authority that had been earned through decades of combat. Each cadet will demonstrate mastery of their chosen discipline. Standards are absolute. Failure means immediate removal from the program. The first test area contained the Krillian Evaluation Zone. Massive training equipment designed for four-armed giants dominated the space. Sergeant Brix waited with his characteristic stern expression, his battle scars telling stories of countless victories. "Cadet Chen," he rumbled, "you will demonstrate power generation, grappling techniques, and endurance in combat application. Begin with strength assessment." Maya approached the testing apparatus. The weight measurements were calibrated for Krillian physiology. The lightest setting was still designed to challenge beings 3 times her size. Other cadets had moved these weights easily, their multiple arms working in perfect coordination. She placed her hands on the resistance bars and began the required sequence. Instead of trying to match Krillian's strength, Maya applied the principles she had learned about leverage and timing. She used her entire body as a unified system, transferring force through her legs, core, and arms in precisely coordinated waves. The weight moved slowly but steadily through the required range. Maya's technique looked completely different from traditional Krillian methods, but the results were measurable. She completed the strength assessment within acceptable parameters. "Interesting," Sergeant Brix muttered. "Your approach is unconventional but effective. Proceed to grappling demonstration." The grappling test paired her against a combat drone programmed with Krillian fighting patterns. The mechanical opponent stood 7 feet tall and possessed the typical four-armed configuration. Its movements were precise and powerful, designed to simulate real combat conditions. Maya had learned that she couldn't outmuscle Krillian techniques, but she could outmaneuver them. As the drone advanced with classic power grips, she flowed around its attacks like water around stone. Where it expected resistance, she provided redirection. Where it applied force, she used leverage. The drone's programming struggled to adapt to her unpredictable responses. It had been designed to fight other Krillians, beings who would meet strength with strength. Maya's approach of using the machine's own momentum against it created situations the drone couldn't effectively counter. She slipped under a four-armed bear hug, used the drone's forward momentum to throw it off balance, then applied a modified Krillian submission hold that took advantage of her smaller frame to find pressure points that larger fighters couldn't access. The drone tapped out according to its damage assessment protocols. Maya had successfully demonstrated grappling proficiency using techniques that were uniquely her own. "Remarkable," Sergeant Brix said, his massive mandibles clicking thoughtfully. "You have understood the principles behind our techniques and found ways to apply them despite your physical limitations. This shows true comprehension of Krillian combat philosophy." The Naga evaluation area was a maze of obstacles designed to test speed, precision, and flowing movement. Master Vess waited among the serpentine pathways, her hood partially flared in concentration. "You must navigate the precision course while engaging multiple targets," she explained. "Speed and accuracy are equally important. Missing a target or taking too long results in failure." The course activated with a soft hum. Holographic targets appeared at random intervals, some moving, some stationary, all requiring pinpoint accuracy to hit vital zones. The pathway twisted through 3 dimensions, demanding the kind of fluid movement that Naga anatomy made natural. Maya launched herself into the course. Her movements had evolved far beyond the clumsy attempts of her early training. Months of studying Naga principles had taught her that their speed came from eliminating wasted motion, not from moving faster than physically possible. She flowed through the obstacles like liquid mercury, her strikes landing with surgical precision. Where Naga fighters would use their natural flexibility to reach impossible angles, Maya used prediction and positioning to be where she needed to be when targets appeared. Her solution was different, but equally effective. Instead of striking like a serpent, she struck like a human who understood serpentine principles. Her attacks came from unexpected directions, following pathways that Naga tradition wouldn't use, but that achieved the same lethal results. Maya completed the course with perfect accuracy and impressive speed. Master Vess studied the performance data with obvious surprise. "Your technique is not traditional," the Naga instructor admitted, "but your understanding of our core principles is sound. You have found human ways to achieve Naga objectives. This is acceptable." The Zaref testing zone looked like a 3-dimensional chessboard come to life. Multiple levels and platforms created a complex environment where fighters could attack and defend from any direction. Master Zack waited in the center, his 6 limbs moving in constant hypnotic patterns. "Zaraf combat requires simultaneous awareness of all vectors," he buzzed. "You must defend against attacks from 6 different directions while maintaining your own offensive capabilities. This test will prove whether 2-limbed beings can truly comprehend our methods." The testing scenario activated. Combat drones emerged from multiple levels, each one attacking from a different angle. Traditional Zaraf technique used all 6 limbs independently, creating a defensive sphere while maintaining offensive pressure in multiple directions. Maya couldn't replicate their multi-limb coordination, but she had learned something equally valuable. Instead of trying to defend everywhere at once, she used movement and positioning to control which angles were available to her opponents. She turned the 3-dimensional battlefield into a series of manageable 2-dimensional encounters. Her solution was pure human ingenuity. She used the environment itself as additional limbs, deflecting attacks off platforms and obstacles, using walls and barriers to limit enemy approach vectors. Where Zareth fought with 6 limbs, Maya fought with spatial awareness and environmental manipulation. The drones struggled to maintain their coordinated assault pattern as Maya refused to stay where their programming expected her to be. She flowed through the environment like a ghost, striking from positions that weren't supposed to exist in traditional Zareth combat theory. When the test ended, Maya had successfully defended against all attacks while maintaining consistent offensive pressure. Master Zack's complex eyes studied her with something that might have been respect. "You do not fight like us," he clicked, "but you fight like someone who understands what we are trying to accomplish. Your methods are alien to our traditions, yet they achieve similar results through different means." The advanced testing phase brought new challenges. Instead of demonstrating single disciplines in isolation, Maya had to show how different techniques could be integrated in realistic combat scenarios. This was where her unconventional training approach would face its ultimate test. The integration chamber contained multiple opponents programmed with different fighting styles. Maya would face a sequence of battles against adversaries who used pure traditional techniques. Her task was to demonstrate effective responses using knowledge from all disciplines. The first opponent was a Krillian combat drone, massive and overwhelmingly powerful. Traditional doctrine suggested meeting force with force, but Maya had learned better. She flowed around its attacks using Naga-inspired movement, then applied Zareth principles of multi-vector thinking to attack from an angle the Krillian system couldn't effectively defend. The second opponent struck with pure Naga speed and precision. Maya responded with Krillian stability and endurance, weathering the lightning assault while looking for openings. When she found her moment, she struck with techniques that combined human anatomy with alien principles. The third drone used sophisticated Zareth patterns, attacking from multiple angles simultaneously. Maya answered with her own version of dimensional thinking, using environment and positioning to create advantages that traditional training hadn't anticipated. Each victory came not from superior strength or speed, but from superior adaptation. Maya fought like someone who understood every system well enough to find its weaknesses and exploit them with techniques those systems had never encountered. The observation deck was filled with instructors and senior cadets, watching the unprecedented evaluation. Many had come to witness what they expected to be a spectacular failure. Instead, they saw something that challenged their understanding of combat training itself. "She's not just using multiple disciplines," observed Commander Thex. "She's creating connections between them that we've never seen before." "It shouldn't work," muttered Master Vess. "Those techniques were developed by completely different species with completely different physiologies. They shouldn't be compatible." "Yet she makes them compatible," added Sergeant Brix. "She has found the underlying principles that connect all our methods." The final test was the most challenging. Maya faced a scenario simulation that replicated actual combat conditions against Void Reaper machines. The enemy AI was programmed with tactical data from real encounters, representing the kind of opponent she would eventually face in active duty. The Void Reaper simulation moved with mechanical precision and overwhelming firepower. Its tactics had been perfected over millennia of destroying civilizations. It analyzed enemy patterns and adapted accordingly, which was why it had proven so difficult for traditional forces to counter. Maya entered the simulation arena knowing this was the ultimate test of everything she had learned. The Reaper machine was bigger, stronger, faster, and more heavily armed than any opponent she had faced. It had no emotions to exploit, no fatigue to wait for, no fear to use against it. But Maya had advantages the machine's programming hadn't anticipated. She fought with techniques that didn't exist in its tactical database. Her movements combined principles from multiple species in ways that created new patterns of attack and defense. The simulation began with the Reaper's standard assault pattern, overwhelming firepower designed to eliminate targets quickly and efficiently. Maya responded with fluid movement that drew from every discipline she had studied. She used Krillian stability to anchor herself against the force of near misses, Naga precision to exploit tiny gaps in the machine's defenses, and Zareth spatial thinking to attack from vectors the Reaper couldn't effectively cover. Most importantly, she fought with human creativity and adaptability. Where other species had developed techniques over thousands of years of gradual evolution, Maya had learned to innovate in real time. She created new solutions as the battle progressed, adapting faster than the machine could analyze her patterns. The Void Reaper simulation began to struggle. Its programming was designed to counter known fighting styles, but Maya wasn't using any single known style. She was using all of them simultaneously, creating a hybrid approach that didn't exist in the machine's tactical databases. Maya pressed her advantage. She had learned that the key to fighting superior opponents wasn't to match their strengths, but to fight in ways that made those strengths irrelevant. The Reaper was more powerful, but Maya was more unpredictable. The machine was faster, but Maya was more creative. The simulation ended with the Reaper unit marking itself as combat ineffective. Maya stood in the center of the arena, breathing hard but victorious. She had successfully demonstrated something that many had thought impossible. A human could not only master alien fighting disciplines, but could combine them in ways that surpassed traditional applications. The observation deck was silent for a long moment. Then Commander Thex began to applaud, his multiple hands creating a sound like thunderclaps. The other instructors joined in, their various forms of approval echoing through the chamber. Maya had passed every evaluation with scores that exceeded minimum requirements. But more than that, she had proven something fundamental about the nature of combat training and adaptation. Her success challenged basic assumptions about species limitations and the possibilities of cross-cultural learning. "Cadet Chen," Commander Thex announced, "you have demonstrated unprecedented achievement in combat training. Your approach to multidiscipline integration represents a new paradigm in warfare education." The other cadets looked at Maya with new respect. Koros, who had once mocked her as too weak for warrior training, now approached with obvious curiosity about her techniques. Vex and Zeke asked detailed questions about how she had adapted their species' methods for human physiology. Maya realized that her journey was far from over. She had proven she could master the existing disciplines, but now she faced a new challenge. Instructors and administrators were already discussing how to formalize her approach, how to teach other cadets to think beyond traditional boundaries. "Your methods need a name," Master Vess observed. "This hybrid style you have developed should be recognized as a legitimate fighting discipline." Maya considered the suggestion. Her approach wasn't really a single style, but rather a philosophy of adaptation and integration. She thought about everything she had learned, about the principles that connected all effective combat techniques, regardless of their origin. "Adaptive integration," she said finally. "It's not about copying specific techniques, but about understanding the principles behind them and finding ways to apply those principles regardless of physical limitations." The name seemed to fit. Over the following weeks, Maya found herself teaching other cadets her approach. Not every student could replicate her exact techniques, but many could apply her philosophy of adaptation to their own training. Beings who had been limited by traditional thinking about their species' capabilities began to explore new possibilities. The Academy administration took notice. Maya's success had implications beyond individual achievement. If beings could learn to integrate multiple fighting disciplines effectively, it might represent a new approach to preparing for the Void Reaper threat. Traditional military doctrine had relied on specialized forces, each species contributing their particular strengths to combined operations. But Maya's example suggested another possibility. Individual fighters who could adapt to any situation using principles drawn from multiple traditions. As the semester ended, Maya received orders that surprised her. Instead of advancing to the next level of training, she was being assigned to a special research unit tasked with developing new anti-Reaper tactics. Her unconventional background and proven adaptability made her an ideal candidate for experimental combat development. The assignment came with both excitement and responsibility. Maya would be working directly with combat veterans who had faced the Reapers in actual battle. She would help develop techniques that might be used by fighters throughout the galaxy. Her small personal journey had become part of something much larger. On her last night at the academy, Maya stood once again at her window, looking out at the stars. She thought about how much had changed since her arrival. The weak human girl who had been mocked by her fellow cadets was now being recognized as an innovator in combat training. But she also thought about how much remained the same. The Void Reapers were still out there, still destroying civilizations with tactics that had proven successful for millennia. The galaxy still needed defenders who could find ways to fight back against an enemy that seemed unstoppable. Maya had learned to fight, but now she needed to learn how to win. Her next assignment would bring new challenges and new opportunities to prove that being human, being adaptable, creative, and stubborn could be advantages in a galaxy that desperately needed new solutions to ancient problems. She packed her few belongings and prepared for whatever came next. Tomorrow would bring new teachers, new techniques to master, and new ways to push the boundaries of what was possible. Maya had proven that a small human could master any fighting discipline. Now she had to prove that those disciplines could be used to save civilizations. The research station orbited a dead world in the Kepler system, its sleek hull a stark contrast against the lifeless planet below. This world had been beautiful once, with crystal cities that caught starlight and turned it into rainbow cascades across marble streets. Now it was nothing but twisted metal and radioactive dust, another victim of the Void Reaper's endless hunger. Maya stood in the observation deck of the Convergence Station, watching automated probes scan the ruins below. 3 months had passed since her graduation from the academy, and every day brought new reminders of why her work mattered. The research facility housed the galaxy's best tactical minds, all focused on a single goal: finding ways to fight back against an enemy that had never been truly defeated. "Cadet Chen, report to Lab 7 for briefing," came the announcement over the station's communication system. Maya had been expecting this call. Today marked the beginning of her most important assignment yet. Lab 7 was a massive chamber filled with holographic displays and combat simulation equipment. As Maya entered, she saw beings from dozens of species working at various stations, their different anatomies requiring specialized interfaces and workspaces. At the center of it all stood General Corax, a Krillian veteran whose scarred carapace told stories of desperate battles against impossible odds. "Ah, our integration specialist arrives," the general rumbled, his voice carrying both warmth and the weight of command. "I trust you've reviewed the mission parameters?" Maya nodded. She had spent weeks studying the classified files, learning about operations that few beings in the galaxy even knew existed. The Convergence Project was the Alliance's most ambitious attempt to develop new anti-Reaper tactics, combining the best minds and most innovative approaches from every species. "Your success at the Academy has drawn considerable attention," General Corax continued. "Your ability to integrate multiple fighting disciplines suggests you might be able to do the same with our various tactical approaches. Today, you meet your team." The general activated a holographic display that showed the faces and files of 5 other beings. Maya recognized none of them, but their credentials were impressive. Each one was a specialist in anti-Reaper warfare, veterans who had survived encounters that killed most of their comrades. "First, we have Dr. Helix, our Naga tactical analyst," General Corax said, as a serpentine figure slithered into view. Dr. Helix was older than Master Vess, her scales bearing the silver patterns that marked advanced age among her species. She has personally studied Void Reaper combat patterns for over 40 years. Dr. Helix bowed her elegant head in greeting. I have followed your academy performance with interest, young human. Your adaptation techniques show promise for our purposes here. Next is Captain Zor, our Zera Field Operations Commander. A large insectoid being stepped forward, his multiple limbs moving with military precision. He has led successful evacuation operations on 12 Reaper-attacked worlds. Captain Zor clicked his approval. Multi-dimensional thinking will be essential for our project. Your academy records suggest you understand this concept better than most bipedal species. Our technology specialist is Engineer Keth from the Vorthen Collective. A tall, ethereal being with translucent skin and glowing neural pathways visible beneath materialized near the display. She designs the weapons and defensive systems our field teams use. Engineer Keth's voice resonated with harmonic undertones. Your integration philosophy may help us develop equipment that adapts to multiple user physiologies and combat styles. Dr. Marcus Webb represents human tactical psychology, the general continued as a middle-aged man with graying hair stepped forward. He studies Reaper behavior patterns and develops counter-strategies. Dr. Webb smiled grimly. Good to have another human on the team, Maya. Your academy instructors speak very highly of your analytical abilities. Finally, we have Sage Durmak, our Altarian strategic planner. A massive blue-skinned being with metallic hair braided with tactical metals moved into the group. He coordinates our efforts with Alliance Military Command. Sage Durmak's voice was deep and resonant. Your unconventional approach to problem-solving may be exactly what this project needs. Traditional strategies have failed for too long. General Corax gestured to the assembled team. These beings represent the best tactical minds in the Alliance. Your job is to help them work together more effectively, to find ways to integrate their expertise, just as you integrated fighting disciplines at the Academy. Maya looked around at the team, feeling both honored and intimidated. These were veterans who had faced the galaxy's greatest threat and survived. They were looking to her, a recent Academy graduate, to help them find solutions that had eluded military planners for generations. What exactly are we trying to accomplish? Maya asked. Dr. Webb activated a holographic display showing tactical data from hundreds of Void Reaper encounters. Every battle with the Reapers follows the same pattern. They approach with overwhelming force, adapt to our tactics within minutes, then systematically destroy all opposition. Traditional military doctrine has never been effective against them. Each species has tried to fight them using our natural strengths, Dr. Helix added. Krylian forces use massive firepower and direct assault. Naga units rely on speed and precision strikes. Zeraf squadrons attempt coordinated multi-vector attacks. Every approach fails for the same reason. Which is? Maya asked. The Reapers have been fighting for millions of years. Captain Zor clicked. They have encountered every type of opponent, every conventional tactic. Their databases contain countermeasures for all traditional combat approaches. Engineer Keth's harmonic voice added. Their adaptation algorithms are incredibly sophisticated. They can analyze and counter new variations of old tactics within combat timeframes. Standard military doctrine becomes predictable to them. Sage Durmak's strategic analysis was blunt. We need tactics that don't exist in their databases, approaches that are so unconventional, so contrary to established military doctrine, that their adaptation systems cannot effectively respond. Maya began to understand her role. You want me to help develop hybrid tactics that combine multiple species approaches in ways that have never been tried before. Exactly, General Corax confirmed. Your academy performance proved that beings can master techniques beyond their natural physiology. If individuals can do this, perhaps military units can as well. The team spent the next several hours reviewing existing tactical data. Maya absorbed information about Void Reaper capabilities that was classified far above her clearance level. She learned about battles that had been kept secret to avoid galactic panic, encounters where entire fleets had been destroyed within hours. The Reapers were more terrifying than she had imagined. Their technology was so advanced it seemed almost magical. Their tactical systems adapted faster than organic minds could think. Their weapons could destroy entire worlds, and their defensive systems had never been significantly damaged by Alliance forces. But as Maya studied the combat records, she began to see patterns that the specialists might have missed. Each species had fought the Reapers using their traditional strengths, but none had tried to fight using their opponent's weaknesses. "Dr. Helix," Maya said during a data review session, "your analysis shows that Reapers adapt quickly to conventional tactics. But what about unconventional ones? Have they ever faced truly hybrid approaches?" The Naga scientist consulted her records. There are no documented cases of interspecies tactical integration being used against Void Reapers. Each encounter has involved forces from single species or loosely coordinated multi-species fleets. Maya turned to Captain Zor. "Your evacuation operations, they were successful because you weren't trying to fight the Reapers directly, right? You were accomplishing different objectives using unexpected methods." The Zeraf officer clicked thoughtfully. "Correct. We focused on speed and misdirection rather than confrontation. The Reapers' databases seemed unprepared for purely defensive operations that avoided engagement entirely. Engineer Keth, is it possible to design weapons and tactics that change constantly during combat? Systems that adapt faster than the Reapers can analyze them?" The Vorthan engineer's bioluminescent patterns shifted to indicate deep concentration. "Theoretically possible, but would require real-time tactical innovation at speeds beyond most organic capabilities." Dr. Webb leaned forward. "Unless you have a tactical system that thinks like you do, Maya. Something that can integrate multiple approaches and create new combinations faster than the enemy can adapt." Maya felt excitement building as the pieces came together. "What if we developed units that fought like I learned at the academy? Teams that could switch between different species tactics within the same engagement, creating hybrid approaches in real time?" Sage Durmak's strategic mind immediately grasped the implications. Small units trained in multi-species techniques operating with enough independence to improvise during combat. They would present constantly changing tactical profiles. General Korax's mandibles clicked approvingly. The Reapers' adaptation systems would struggle to counter tactics that don't remain consistent long enough to be fully analyzed. The team spent the following weeks developing the theoretical framework for what became known as adaptive integration tactics. The concept was revolutionary. Instead of relying on single-species military doctrine, they would create mixed units trained in multiple approaches. Maya worked with each specialist to identify the core principles behind their species' combat methods. Dr. Helix helped her understand how Naga speed and precision could be applied by non-serpentine beings. Captain Zor showed her ways to implement Zeraf multidimensional thinking using standard bipedal anatomy. Engineer Keth began designing equipment that could support multiple combat styles within the same engagement. Weapons that could switch between Krillian power modes and Naga precision targeting. Armor systems that could provide Altarian durability while maintaining Vorthon mobility. Dr. Webb developed psychological profiles for mixed-species teams, identifying personality types that could adapt quickly to changing tactical requirements. Sage Durmak created strategic frameworks for deploying adaptive units in ways that would maximize their unpredictability. The first prototype unit was assembled 6 months later. Maya was selected to lead the team, with representatives from 5 different species as her squad members. Each team member was trained not only in their own species' combat methods, but also in adapted versions of all the others. The training process was intense. Maya found herself teaching beings who had years more military experience than she did. But her academy background gave her unique insights into the challenges and possibilities of cross-species technique integration. Sergeant Crix, the Krillian team member, initially struggled with Naga-inspired movement techniques. His four-armed physiology made the flowing motions feel unnatural and inefficient. Maya worked with him to find ways to adapt serpentine principles to his anatomy, creating movements that provided similar tactical advantages using his natural strengths. Lieutenant Shen, their Naga operative, had difficulty with Zareth multidimensional thinking. Her species' linear movement patterns made it hard to visualize simultaneous attacks from multiple vectors. Maya helped her develop mental frameworks that translated complex spatial relationships into terms that made sense for serpentine minds. The Zareth team member, Corporal Vic, found Krillian power techniques almost impossible to implement with his insectoid anatomy. Maya showed him how to use coordinated multi-limb movements to generate similar force applications, creating striking patterns that achieved comparable results through different mechanics. Each team member faced similar challenges, but Maya's integration philosophy provided solutions. Instead of trying to make beings fight exactly like other species, she helped them find ways to achieve similar tactical objectives using their own physiological advantages. The breakthrough came during their first live-fire exercise against Reaper simulation targets. The team faced automated opponents programmed with actual Void Reaper tactical patterns, systems that had been captured from destroyed machines and studied extensively. Maya's unit demonstrated something unprecedented. As the simulated Reapers began to adapt to their initial tactics, the team smoothly transitioned to completely different approaches. When power-based assaults were countered, they switched to precision strikes. When speed tactics were neutralized, they implemented multi-dimensional attacks. The simulation opponents struggled to maintain effective countermeasures. Every time their adaptation algorithms began to predict the team's behavior, Maya's unit changed to a completely different tactical paradigm. The Reaper's greatest strength, their ability to analyze and counter enemy patterns, became a liability when facing opponents who refused to maintain consistent patterns. The exercise ended with complete success. Maya's team had defeated simulation opponents that had previously been considered nearly invincible. The tactical data showed adaptation cycles that confused and overwhelmed the Reaper systems. General Korax reviewed the results with obvious satisfaction. This represents the first significant tactical advantage over Void Reaper systems in recorded history. Your integration approach has created something genuinely new. But Maya knew this was just the beginning. One successful simulation against captured enemy systems didn't guarantee success against actual Reapers in real combat conditions. The true test would come when they faced living machines with millions of years of combat experience. That test came sooner than expected. 3 weeks after their successful simulation, reports arrived of a Void Reaper scout force approaching the Kepler system. Alliance Command faced a decision: evacuate the research station or use it as an opportunity to test their new tactics under real combat conditions. The decision was made to stay and fight. Maya's team would have their chance to prove that adaptive integration tactics could work against actual Void Reapers. It would be the first time in galactic history that hybrid multi-species tactics had been used against the ancient enemy. Maya stood once again at the observation deck, watching the distant stars for signs of approaching death. Somewhere out there, machines older than most civilizations were coming to destroy everything the research station represented. In a few hours, she would discover whether a small human girl's journey from academy failure to tactical innovator had led to something that could save the galaxy. Her team gathered around her, beings from different worlds united by training and purpose. Each of them carried weapons and techniques that their species had never used before, tactical approaches that existed only because Maya had learned to think beyond traditional limitations. The Void Reapers were coming, but for the first time in galactic history, they would face opponents who fought like no one had ever fought before. Maya thought of her brother David, of all the families who had lost loved ones to the Reaper's mindless hunger, of every civilization that had fallen because no one could find a way to fight back effectively. Tomorrow would determine whether her journey had led to something that could make a difference, whether a weak human girl who had learned to master every fighting discipline could help create tactics that would finally give the galaxy a way to win. The stars waited silently for the answer.